Hey friends, today we're talking wedding details, all of the little things that make your photos next level. The invitation suite, personalized seating chart, table settings, candles, signage, the list goes on. As you know, there are a ton of details to be captured on a wedding day. And that's why I want to focus on this specific topic because you need to do this right if you want to get hired again by the planner that, let's say, you worked with for the first time. If you want to make the vendors who helped make this wedding look the way it did, if you want to make them happy, you really need to hone in your skills of shooting the details. And that's what we're going to talk about. I mean, basically, all of these little details, all of these things that were chosen by the couple are very important and they tie everything together. Even, let's say, like a personalized seating chart, that sometimes can be done in a way that really reflects the couple's story or something that they enjoy together. You can get really creative with that. And it's always fun to photograph those details that are really important to the couple. Basically, it fills in the gaps between the ceremony, the portraits, and the reception. So what I mean by that is it's a good way to transition your gallery from the ceremony to portraits, either during the getting ready portion, close-ups, of course, of the invitation suite, the flat lay of the dress. Then you transition to detail shots of the ceremony. It just really makes your gallery cohesive. Even the tablescapes at the reception are a very important detail that needs to be photographed a certain way. And you really have to be cognizant of all of the things that have to be placed correctly and what you might have to edit later on in order to provide the planner and the vendors photos that they will be very proud of. So yeah, details give options for your gallery. You've got multiple angles, you've got patterns, textures, layers in there, and those shots that also feel editorial. There's just so much that you can do, and planners really love these images for their portfolios and their social media and also publications. And couples love them because they show all the thought and work that went into their day. And prepping helps everything go smoothly. Talk to planners ahead of time. Ask them what will be ready when. Ask them where items will be placed. Something like a welcome sign can easily be missed if you didn't realize it was there, because most of the times we're not at the entrance where the guests come in. We're more focused on like the ceremony area and the reception. And obviously, we're at the getting ready area. So that is something where communication comes in and is very important. If there's no planner, then, you talk to the venue coordinator. We'll also be getting into how second shooters are very helpful in being able to capture everything that you need to, and that way nothing is missed. Okay, so here's a clear list of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about capturing details in a way that impresses planners and brings joy to your couples. We're going to dive into flat lays, everything from perfectly styled to a little bit messy and in between. We'll talk about how second shooters help you capture the details that you can't alone. And I'll also be sharing timing strategies so that you can get all the shots without stress. By the end of this episode, you'll know exactly how to handle details on a wedding day. You'll have the strategies to prep, to shoot, and to capture every little piece that makes a gallery feel complete. You'll see how the right approach makes your work shine and gives planners, vendors, and couples exactly what they're hoping for. All right, let's go into the first topic: capturing details in a way that really impresses the planners that you're working with and also wows your couples and really makes them relive the day and be so happy with the details that they chose that made their wedding design cohesive. So with the invitation suites, we'll start there. And planners really like the details that are captured with this because it really highlights their vendors. And this is also what publications love, the invitation suite. And couples love it because it's a keepsake that they'll look at forever. Personalized seating charts are another gold mine. You're capturing the calligraphy, the design, the personalized choices that the couple made. It's really such a special touch, and it makes their guests feel welcomed. It's something where you need to notice the framing of it, the props around the seating chart, and just the overall composition. These shots show planners that you were thoughtful and you knew how to capture all of the details of the seating chart whether it's a wide angle and then all the little details, like, you got to zoom in, you've got to capture like the font, the calligraphy, and obviously the tables and table settings deserve attention too. The linens, chargers, even the napkin folds, the menus, all of that. It's really a lot of layers that is going to take more time for sure, the reception and the tablescapes. But these shots really show how the room came together and it made the design pop. And planners are especially drawn to the reception design because I feel like a lot of effort goes into that, a lot of work. It's definitely very important to them. Also, drone shots are very popular right now. These overhead views show the ceremony setup or an outdoor reception setup in a way that nothing else can. You can really capture the full layout of the tables, the pathways, the florals from above. These shots really highlight scale and design. Couples love seeing their wedding from a bird's eye view because they weren't able to see it like that on the day of. So it's just a really cool perspective of their ceremony or their reception outdoor. It really adds a wow factor to the gallery, and it gives planners, again, it gives them shots that they can use for their portfolios, for social media, and for publications. And here's a little tip. If you don't have a drone, ask the videographer for stills. Hopefully you have a good relationship with this videographer and they are totally cool with doing this for you. But if not, you need to either purchase a drone, get your drone license, or as I sometimes do, I hire a drone pilot for my weddings when I know that drone shots were important, or I offer drone shots as an added a la carte menu item. Sometimes it's not the greatest to rely on a videographer for those shots, but like I said, if you have a good relationship with whoever you are working with on the day of the wedding, then they can easily get those still shots for you. So back to publications, they really love the details, the really stylized tables, the unique stationery, florals, and even small accessories that can make a wedding unique. They really do like highlighting something that makes a wedding stand out. It's all about showing couples ideas for their wedding. The details matter a lot. So really think about capturing the details thoughtfully and with a lot of variation so that your gallery is more likely to get picked up by a publication. And you know that your vendors and the planner will absolutely love that. Now let's talk about flat lays, the styled, the messy, the in-between. These shots are everywhere on Instagram and blogs, publications, and for a good reason. They really show off details in a clean, organized way. At least that is traditionally how it was. It used to be that flat lays had to be perfectly composed, even lighting, everything perfectly straight and aligned, nothing out of place. And that look is still beautiful and I still do it, but things have shifted. So now I do a combination because couples are loving the slightly messy flat lays now. It's basically just like throwing the details onto a chair or onto a floor that has a cool texture design or something like that. Even shooting them in like harsh shadows or dappled light from a tree. And of course, I'm slightly exaggerating when I say just throw the details down, but that's kind of the idea to a messy flat lay. First, I start out with the traditional flat lay because that's going to take me the most time. By the way, little side note, while I'm working on the flat lay, if I can have my second shooter with me or even a third shooter, that is ideal because a traditional perfect flat lay takes some time. And I don't want the bride and her bridesmaids to think that so much of their getting ready portion of the day was taken up by me shooting their flat lay. So if I can have another photographer in the room to capture the tail end of the hair and makeup, any interactions, or even a couple portraits that the girls might want in their robes, then I think that's what's best. So once I'm done with the flat lay that I constructed carefully, now it's time for the messy flat lay. I usually find a chair, like I said, or sometimes not carpet, but sometimes the floor of a venue or a balcony of the suite that they're getting ready in has like a nice texture to it, or even like a coffee table. And I'll just kind of loosely throw the items on there. And this is where I don't mind getting the shoes in with some of the jewelry. So yeah, by the way, stationers do not like shoes to be photographed at the same time as their invitation suite. I actually had no idea about this until a stationer told me. And I think that the reason is because shoes are something that you walk on the floor with, and it just doesn't go with the formality of the wedding stationery. And I was surprised when I heard that this was the preference of stationers, because I was usually including the shoes with the flat lay, especially if they were like sparkly or something that went with the theme, of the invitation. But now I know that they do not prefer that in like a, more formal flat lay. Really, the invitation suite is the star of that photo, and something like shoes just doesn't go with an invitation. It just doesn't vibe. They don't go together. But for a messy flat lay, that's totally cool. I already got the flat lay that the stationer is going to want. Now I'm getting something that is what couples also like, because that's kind of what the trend is right now. And like I've said before in other episodes, I understand that chasing trends isn't always the best idea, but you do have to be somewhat on trend, and you have to be aware of what couples want nowadays, because you may get left behind. If they don't see something in your galleries that they have seen in other examples of work online and they want this, well, you didn't have a messy flat lay in your gallery, they may overlook you. All right, now let's talk about how second shooters can help capture details that you can't alone. They really let you focus on the big moments without missing anything else. So let's say you're capturing portraits, like family portraits. A lot of times my second shooters will be in the reception, capturing all of those details, because the planner planned this out. The reception is going to be ready at the time that me as the main shooter is supposed to be doing the formal portraits. It's all about being efficient with your time. Or sometimes I have the second shooter or third shooter with me during portraits. A lot of times during the romantics, especially, I do want a second photographer with me, because I want to capture as many different angles as possible. But also they're capturing details like a close-up of the bouquet or a close-up of the wedding dress, like the lace on it, the flowers in a bride's hair. They're able to capture those details from a distance using a long lens. So that is really helpful to me. So yeah, you end up with shots that you wouldn't have been able to get on your own. Another thing that sometimes happens is that after the guests have left the ceremony area, sometimes the lighting is better. And so sometimes my second shooter will capture the ceremony details all over again, because now they're in even lighting when before they were in harsh lighting. Now that doesn't happen. I'd say that happens less than 50% of the time. But this is just to show you the example of all of the different things that you should be thinking about on a wedding day when it comes to details. And as a main shooter, how you can direct your second shooter in how and what and when they are taking these photos. Second shooters also notice little things that you may not. As a main shooter, you're really focusing on those portraits and you're front facing way more than your second shooter. So they're able to kind of be a little bit more behind the scenes and even observe things that you don't have a chance to. So ultimately, they allow you to cover more ground without stress. All right, on to talking about timing, when to capture the details. So when you shoot details can completely change how they look and how smooth the day runs. You got to start early with getting ready. You need to give yourself time to really get that flat lay without feeling rushed. And next, when you arrive to the ceremony, you need to make sure that your arrival time is planned out to be at least half an hour before the ceremony starts. So sometimes there's, getting ready at a different location at a hotel, and then you have to travel to to the ceremony location. And it's also best if you're not rushed and you feel like you're able to capture all of those details and still have that buffer time to get ready for the ceremony. Right after I shoot those details is when I put on my harness with my 2 cameras. Before that, I have been shooting the getting ready and the ceremony details with just 1 camera. You also need to give yourself time to drink water, have a snack, because by the time the ceremony comes around, you've probably already been shooting for a couple hours or more, depending on how far away the getting ready place was or how much time they needed for getting ready. Because again, remember, a lot of times we do first looks during that time. So a little side note, take care of yourself. Communication with the planner is also really important when it comes to timing for getting those detail shots. That should be incorporated into a timeline so you're not feeling rushed or wondering when it is that you're going to have time to shoot the reception or why it is that you arrived to the ceremony with like 5 minutes to go. I mean, sometimes hair and makeup does run late, but again, there should be buffer time built into the timeline. It's also important to have enough time to shoot the reception details. And that means having the room completely cleared out for those wide shots. And so again, the communication with the planner and the venue team is really important because sometimes they're still, doing final touches and I'm just waiting or I have to ask them to stop so I can take a picture of the room. And sometimes I've even had to start taking pictures of one table, even when all the tables are not ready yet. And there should always be a table that is perfect, that the planner will point out to you, or that is perfectly set up so that you can avoid some of that waiting around. Also, what's really important is not allowing guests to go into the reception until we have gotten all of those detail shots, because then we have to go up to people and ask them to please step to the side because we're taking these pictures, or sometimes they'll leave their coat or a bag on the table, on the chair. So again, timing and communication go hand in hand. If you plan ahead, coordinate, and keep an eye on the clock, your detail shots will feel effortless and complete. And that leads me into talking about the little things that make detail shots feel elevated. These are the touches that planners notice and that couples love. One thing that a lot of photographers don't know about, but that is a thing with planners, is they do not like water in the glasses during detail shots. And the reason is water in the glasses can create reflections that distract from the shot. Glass is kind of tricky. It picks up everything around it and it can distort what you meant to show, especially if there is water inside. If possible, ask the staff to wait until those detail shots have been captured before they start pouring the water into the glasses. Another thing that is kind of a pet peeve for planners is wrinkled linens. And you as a photographer, aren't responsible for that, obviously. But something that you don't think about is that you actually kind of are responsible for it in the way that it shows up in your photos. This is something that newer photographers don't think about. But if for some reason the linens on a table are wrinkled, then you should take those wrinkles out in Photoshop or possibly in Lightroom if you can use the generative AI. Things are just so much easier with that. There should be no excuse not to do that. If you want your planner and the vendors to be happy, then please take the time to do that. Also, making sure that the knives and forks are straight and lined up along with the plates. Again, these are things that you don't think about, but when you do get into the level of more luxury weddings, these are things that planners are looking for in the photos. And they try their best to make everything look perfect, but they're not always looking at every single table. So you need to notice these things. You should straighten those things out. And if you don't, I've even had to straighten them out in like Photoshop. And I know that's not fun. But again, if you want to have a great working relationship with the planner, especially if it's your first time working with this planner, then you want to make sure everything is perfect and something that they will be happy to showcase. One more example of how you should be delivering a photo gallery to planners and couples, of course, is when you're shooting details that are outdoors and there's like a background of, let's say, a parking lot, or there's people behind, like in the shot of the seating chart, let's say, well, that's something that you also need to possibly edit out later or find different angles where you can avoid getting things in your background that shouldn't be there. And when you're shooting those bigger details like the ceremony location or a ballroom or a lounge area, variety is key. You've got to do tight shots, wide shots, horizontal, vertical, just cover all your angles. Also, I'll change lenses. I'll do a 24-70 for like a wide shot of the room, but then I'll also put on my macro lens to get those small details. I'll do that for like the invitation suite, but I'll also do that for the tablescape. Sometimes there are favors on the table or the menus, you want to capture close-ups of that. So sometimes you have to change your lens, and that's okay. Whatever you have to do to get that variety, this approach ensures that every element is represented and nothing gets lost. All right, so we're going to be wrapping this up. Details tell the story and they honor the day and they bring to life the gallery. From timing to working with planners, from capturing natural setups to adjusting when things shift, it all comes together. Remember to think about timing. Plan your day so you have windows for the details, and make sure to communicate with the planner so that that timing is built into the timeline. Stay aware of light and space, stay flexible. Things will move, shift, and change, and that's normal. Just keep observing and capture what's there. Small adjustments can go a long way. Encourage your couples to think about the details too. Every element, big or small, contributes to the feeling of the day. When everything is aligned, it's easier to create a gallery that feels polished, complete, and full of life. Celebrate the work that everyone's put in and enjoy being there to capture it all. I really hope this gives you a fresh perspective on the detail shots that should be captured on a wedding day. Pay attention, plan ahead, and stay flexible, and you'll walk away with images that truly honor the day. See you next time. Bye.